toward the end of a pet's life, this is kind of a repetitive list, but again, some of the things that we'll see at end of life. And then I, at the end, starred some of the things that I think are the most important to pay attention to. And when you really, really are very much at end of life, and at that point you need to do something. And I do want to say that this doesn't mean that because your pet has some of these things that they're definitely at end of life, but these are very important signs to pay attention to. Again, diminished appetite or anorexia, weakness, cognitive decline, especially over a long period of time, such that it really affects your pet's quality of life. Lack of mobility or being non-ambulatory. I was really surprised when we started this service how many pets were just older dogs that could still eat and drink, and they may even be very cognitively normal. They just couldn't walk anymore. And for some people, that's okay. They would put them in a wheelchair, or they would pick them up and take them everywhere, take them outside to go potty. And they had the time or wherewithal to do that. Not everyone does, and no one should feel guilty if they don't do that. But it is amazing how many dogs just cannot walk anymore. And that is a huge thing for dogs and cats too. Because if they can't go for their walks, if they can't be independent, if they can't even follow you around the house and go to their water bowl or food bowl, then they're not like people where we can sit and watch TV, we can read a book, we can interact with our family, by having a good discussion. When they are stuck in their bed 23 hours a day, it's not a great quality of life, in my opinion. Restlessness, can't sleep. Sometimes these pets, they literally can't sleep. They're so painful, they lay down and they just cannot get comfortable. Standing up is not comfortable, and they just can't sleep. And that's miserable. Avoiding the family, incontinence, and that goes down to dignity. Some pets couldn't care less. They'll lay in their pee and their poo and they're fine, and others are clearly disgusted. And I have owners tell me that sometimes. He was very fastidious. He never liked to go anywhere in the house. He would hold it forever, and then all of a sudden he can't do that. So it's a matter of dignity for that pet. Being unkempt, not being able to groom, and then again, not drinking, seizures. We'll see seizure activity a lot of times at very end of life. People will call me sometimes and say, my dog just seizured and he had bloody diarrhea all over the place. And I can tell you that in a lot of cases we cannot get there in time for that pet, even if we get there within an hour. And then again, not being able to breathe. The emerging conditions, I already kind of went over this, but this is, I very rarely tell people we really need to euthanize your pet. But what I do say in some circumstances is you're really at that, turning point. You either need to euthanize or you need to go in to the clinic and, do something, whether that be put them on fluids, give them some, IV pain medication, have them evaluated, but you can't just let them sit at this point. And that is when they've been anorexic for several days, especially in a pet that already has a very poor body condition. If they are not drinking, if they are having trouble breathing, and if they are in uncontrollable pain, uncontrollable obvious pain. And, they really should be going before then. But, again, the progression of the disease is different for every pet. Every owner is a little bit different about how observant they are, how intuitive they are too. And there's a lot of denial too. And then I can speak from experience because I had a 21-year-old cat when I was 8 years old, with the dog when I was 8 years old, and I had her in vet school. I hadn't graduated yet. She had kidney failure. She had been diagnosed with renal insufficiency about 4 years before, and so I knew it was coming. I had a lot of time to prepare, but when it came down, to the point where she couldn't walk anymore, and I knew it was time. I just couldn't do it because I'd never done it before. I didn't really have any tools or anyone to turn to really know how to make that decision, and that's what I really tried to help people avoid. But it's you just never know how you're going to feel until you're in that situation. I've given another presentation before, and I'm surprised even in the veterinary community how many people aren't aware of this scale, but for us, we find it pretty helpful, at least as a resource for families when they're really struggling. Not that they have to follow all of this to a T, but at least, if nothing else, it gets you thinking about, what your consideration should be. Maybe put a different perspective on what you're seeing with your pet. So the P scale was developed by a veterinarian to help quantify what you're seeing at end of life with your pets. And it looks at 7 different criteria that you rate on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the best. So if they're doing great, they're happy, for happiness scale, you would give them a 10. And so the way you grade this is that if you have a cumulative score of 35, which means basically an average of 5 on each of those 7 criteria, then you probably really should be looking at making a decision at that point. So the criteria that we're looking at are hurt, which is talking about pain. Are you able to control the pain adequately? And if you can, great. Are they able to breathe? Okay, great. And then if they are, I would say that's a 10. Hunger. Are they eating enough to meet their metabolic demand? And this is really important because I hear people all the time say, well, yeah, he ate a little bit. And then you ask them how much, and well, they ate about a tablespoon of food. Whether that be a cat or a Rottweiler, that is not enough food to meet your metabolic demand. And again, I was in that circumstance where my kitty, I would sit there and I'd say, please just eat some food. And she would eat a little tiny bit because I was compelling her to eat, but it was not enough to meet her metabolic demand. And I knew that, but I kept thinking, well, she ate a little bit today, maybe she'll eat more tomorrow. And it's easy to get into that cycle. Hydration are they hydrated? And this is really important. I think not enough emphasis is placed on this. I don't think that people appreciate how important this is because, if you've ever been really sick and you're really thirsty but you can't drink, you really feel horrible, and the longer you go that day because you can't drink because you're vomiting or whatever, and then by the end of the day you feel really horrible. And if you can imagine that going on day after day after day, just from a physiological standpoint, I'm sure you can understand that no pet is going to get better if they're not taking in enough fluid. So it's extremely important to stay hydrated and try to assess as best you can whether they are drinking enough. And if not, there are things you can do. You can give IV fluids in the clinic. You can give subcutaneous fluids at home oftentimes. And it's important to do that if you can. Hygiene. This is, again, going back to dignity. I think that's one of the most important aspects of that. And also just being able to keep them clean and not develop any secondary issues like bed sores or, if you already have a wound that's infected, being able to keep that clean. If you've got a dog that has a really horrible mass and it's open and ulcerated and it's stinky, no one really wants to necessarily be around that dog, and how do you think that makes them feel? So there's a lot of things to consider about that. Happiness. Is the pet alert and able to enjoy some things? I mean, maybe they can't enjoy everything that they used to, but they can enjoy most everything. So are they able to go on a walk? Are they able to enjoy that? Are they able to be around the family, around other pets and enjoy that? Do they like to play with their toys? And if they're not, if they're just sleeping 23 hours of the day and the rest of the time they go out and go potty and that's it, that's not a great quality of life. And then mobility, as I mentioned before, with pets, mobility is everything and being independent, and they can't do the things that we can do if we were stuck in a wheelchair. So I think mobility is a very, very critical aspect of quality of life, particularly for dogs that it's a border collie that used to love to play with its frisbee, and now it can't even walk. And then the last criteria is more good days than bad. And I think this is where it's useful, if you can, to keep even a calendar and actually quantify whether they're having more good days than bad. And if they're having more bad days, then at the very least you need to quantify on the scale. Maybe that's the threshold for you and your family where you said if they have more bad days than good, then it's going to let them go. I have a lot of people who tell me that, they've been through this process before euthanasia and they felt like they let it go on too long. And I think, a lot of people go through that. I know I went through that. Having gone through it with my cat, I would make decisions much differently. And of course I have a lot different reference point and experience now, but I think once people have gone through it one time, your perspective changes and you don't necessarily want to wait too long. So I just wanted to touch on really quickly euthanasia versus natural death. Because sometimes people will come to us or we'll talk to them on the phone and they'll say, as I mentioned, well, I just really want them to go to sleep and not wake up. Does that ever happen? Or sometimes they'll say, I can't decide, I really just want him to die a natural death. And that's okay too. It really is, in most circumstances. The important thing is if you can do that and let them be as comfortable as possible, that's okay. Again, if they're having trouble breathing, if they're clearly in pain, I don't think that it's humane to let a natural death occur, but everyone is different. But it is okay, and there's no judgment from my perspective or anyone that works for me when people say that they want their pet to go naturally, and some people do. I think the nice thing about euthanasia that it's hard to convey to people when we're having this discussion about euthanasia versus natural death is the lack of control over what you're going to see. And I try not to make things be dramatic when I'm talking to people or trying to counsel them on, what choices they're making. Because I never, clearly it's kind of a conflict of interest in my mind to say, yes, you should euthanize for sure. But at the same token, I can't tell you that your pet's going to have a peaceful death because no one knows how that will happen. And even the pets that may, quote unquote, die at home in their bed asleep, it oftentimes doesn't work that way. You may not see it, but there may be seizures, there may be pain, there may be some localizing that you don't see because you're not there with them, and all you see is the pet that's passed away. And it is what it is. I also believe that things happen the way they're supposed to happen, and I just try to be realistic without scaring people that you don't have much control over the natural death process unless you're sedating that pet heavily. Whereas with euthanasia, you have a lot more control of that. You can, for the most part, let it go fairly quickly, and you can control who's there and when it happens. And there's a lot to be said about that. I think that a lot of people contact us because they envision that they would want to be at home themselves for when they pass away. And a lot of people say to me, gosh, I wish I could go this way, because it is very peaceful when it's done correctly. But even in the best of circumstances, things can happen and things can be not as we expect. But for the most part, if we can euthanize the pet at the right time, you can control so many more variables that can prevent it from being a disturbing death, disturbing to the family, I should say. So when you're talking about euthanasia, we have these options now. Most people, I think of euthanasia in the clinical setting, and there's a lot of good reasons to do that. The family sometimes wants to go to the regular veterinarian, or the pet really liked that veterinarian, or it may actually be a pet that actually liked to go to the clinic. Although most of the people who contact us, they're saying their pet hated to go to the clinic. It may be an emergency situation where you feel like that's the only option. Sometimes people are unaware that there are other options for euthanasia. And sometimes people don't want to think about euthanasia being at their home. Like they don't want to think about, their dog being right there in the middle of the living room when they passed away, and they've got to look at that area. And then Sometimes I think people think it's going to be more expensive, home euthanasia versus clinic euthanasia, and it's, all I can say is it's very variable. Some clinics I think are more expensive than home euthanasia. Some home euthanasias are extremely expensive. It's very variable. Everyone can set their own price. The benefits to home euthanasia are we have a lot of large immobile dogs. We have a 140-pound Rottweiler today that one of my doctors is helping. That's not a dog that people can move very easily, and a lot of times they can't walk, they're painful anyway, and to get them into the car is hard. Sometimes they're already painful, or they're very stressed out, they're very anxious, and then of course, thinking about shoving them into a cat carrier and taking them to the clinic is the last thing that people want to consider. What people say to me all the time is, I don't want to think of them on a hard steel table. That's the last thing they want to think about, and so they have us come to their home. With home euthanasia, we can have, of course, the family there, and we've had huge groups of people there having a memorial, basically, or a party, at the time that we get there. And then also having the pet family members, and I think that's really important. A lot of times, that is the primary reason that people are having us come over, because they can't bring their other, 4 dogs. And, to go again a little bit on a tangent there, what I always tell people is that, because a lot of times people will say, should they be there during the procedure, or should I take them over to my friend's house? And, I think that they should be there if they can. The only time I discourage it is when they're the type of pet that, wants to be in the middle of things, wants to sit in my lap, or just stepping all over the poor dog that's laying there. And in that case, we will ask them to go into another room. But usually I think it's great for them to be there, because they're going to be excited when we get there, but they're going to calm down eventually, and then we can do what we need to do. But I think it's important for them to be able to see the pet once they've passed away and to know that they're gone. I also tell people, don't expect a reaction, because they're not going to react like we would should we see our sister or brother dead. A lot of times there's no discernible reaction. They may not even go up and sniff them. People say, a lot of times it's very anticlimactic, and people are expecting them to go up and really react, and most of the time they don't. But they do know. They still know. I truly believe it. And then for home burials, a lot of times it's easier, of course, to have your pet in your home as opposed to doing euthanasia in the clinic and then bringing them back home. So I wanted to just bring up aftercare because, again, this is something that I find a lot of people have not even considered, the aspect of aftercare. And you basically have a few different options. You can bury your pet at home. And some people ask me, well, is that legal? And my first answer is I honestly don't know. I've never verified that, but probably about 10 to 15% of the folks that we help do bury their own pets at home. And I have been told that if you're burying your pet in your own property, that you're okay in Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties. But again, I have not verified that. A lot of people do bury their own pets. So. Have you verified it?
I haven't. I say exactly what you say.
Yeah.
You say, I don't know, I haven't. Don't ask, don't tell. I kind of help them decide how deep in that is, that I don't talk to them about whether they should or shouldn't. I think that's a personal decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, aftercare is a very personal decision, and some people very much want to have every little bit they can. They want to have the ashes, they want to have the whole cat shaved. We've had that happen. They want to make something out of the fur. They want to have toenails. I have actually, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but I have actually, on the request of an owner, removed the head. And they wanted to have it sent to a guy in Washington who will then have the tissue removed. I think he puts it in with dung beetles or something, whatever they call those. Yeah. She then sent me a photo a couple weeks later of the skull, and it was beautiful. And she said, just really simply, thank you for allowing me this beautiful artifact. And that was important to her, But there's a lot of other people who say, once they're gone, and I don't need to have their body, And there's everything in between. So anyway, home buried, you can also do private cremation, and that's where the pets are individually cremated or sometimes partition cremated. But basically they keep the pet for the most part by themselves, and then they process that pet, and so they return your pet's ashes to you. That's more expensive, the most expensive option. So for example, a cat would be like $100 usually for a private cremation, depending on where you go. A 60-pound dog would be about $165 to $200 for private cremation. And then communal cremation is where the pets are cremated in a group. They don't return ashes in that case. You can do what's called, at least at Dignified Pet Services, where we work with the most, they can do what's called a communal scoop, where it's just basically a symbolic scoop of ashes. You're not going to get your own pet's ashes, but occasionally people want that. They do charge a load for that. I think it's like $20. But anyway, if you want to do a communal cremation, you can. And so that just basically means that the pet is taken away, and that's it. And so for a cost basis, it really depends on where you're going. But for example, through our service, typically a cat would be somewhere around $50 for a communal cremation, and a dog that's 60 pounds would be about $90. And then, there are other options available for those people who really want to have everything that they can have. You can do clay paw impressions. They do a patty of clay, and they impress the paw into it. You can do inked prints where they put ink on the pad and they press it onto like a heavy cardstock. You can do what's called a remembrance heart, and that's where you have a ceramic 2-piece heart. One piece goes in with the pet during the cremation, the other part you keep with you, and then they reunite them when you get the ashes back. And fur clipping, as I mentioned, we do fur clippings, or your vet can do fur clippings, you can do fur clippings. There are lots of other options that you can do with the cremains once the cremation has been done. Some people will do jewelry, or they'll do a little vial of the cremains. They have different types of glass art that incorporates like a little bit of ash in it. Vases, same thing. I saw a company recently that does glass floats. I don't think they'd actually use it as a glass float, but it looks like a glass float. So those are some things that you can think about, when the time comes. These are some very good resources that have information about making the decision, about grief. Enid, of course, I didn't put her up there, although I totally should have, because I just assumed everyone knows who Enid is, and she's at Dove Lewis with the Pet Loss Support Group, and she does an amazing job. She holds support group meetings every month, several times a month, and people can come in and share photos, share stories, just talk about what's going on, or not talk at all. So the Argus Institute is one of the longest running organizations. It's run by the Colorado State University College of Veterinary Medicine Teaching Hospital, and they have volunteers, I believe, that can also help with support. But their website is great, and it offers a lot of different resources and links and things. And then the Association of Pet Loss and Bereavement also offers kind of the same thing, a lot of different resources. You can find home euthanasia vets on there as well as hospice vets in different areas. And a really good bibliography of books for children and also for anyone on pet loss and bereavement, making a decision, caring for aging or elderly pet.